So to talk a little bit about what I'm trying to do tonight is I'm essentially gonna going to do what we used to do back in the day and try and teach everyone who's watching the stream how to write essentially Notepad, how to write this application or something like it in as little time as possible. That's the goal anyway. I don't know if I'll actually be able to do what I'll be able to do tonight. I hope I can get through quite a bit, actually. My goal for tonight is loading and saving and editing, obviously. And if we get there, maybe changing the font. And I think that's all doable in a couple hours. Again, why would I want to do this why would I want to do this on Windows 2000? And Windows 2000, it's like, it's an old OS. I think a lot of people might not have actually heard of it, really, especially the younger kids, because Windows 2000 was an OS, essentially, it was an OS for professionals. It was used mostly in offices. If anyone here has ever heard of Windows NT, the NT essentially doesn't really mean anything, but it was Microsoft's sort of like serious workstation OS compared to Windows 95, which was Windows 3.1, Windows 95, and Windows 98, and later on Windows ME, which were their consumer OSs. So Windows 2000 was Microsoft's sort of like attempt at making the Windows NT kernel, and the kernel is the part of the operating system that sort of controls, application launching and, making sure things run correctly, protecting applications from stomping on each other's memory. They combined their like highly advanced NT kernel with the user interface advancements that they had made in the consumer versions of Windows, like Windows 98. So after Windows 2000 came Windows XP, and Windows XP was their first like real consumer version of NT. And with XP, they added a ton of features. They added like the theming system, which made the operating system look a lot more friendly. But in some ways, it sort of added a bunch of unnecessary slowness to the OS in a bunch of senses. I think that if you really think about what computers are, they're tools, right? And I prefer a user interface like this, one that is like more, I don't know about soulless, but at least utilitarian, so that the thing that I'm working on comes through and not so much the actual operating system design. I think there's a lot to say about how modern operating systems sort of, they make everything appealing. They make everything usable by the absolute broadest group of people, whether they have any computer experience whatsoever. And I think that actually might have been the cause for, computing kind of falling off or sort of going in a direction that I'm not super thrilled with. I think modern operating systems, if you want to do some investigation here into Windows 2000 right away. I haven't started coding yet. Just for anyone who's joined the stream, I'm just doing a little tour of Windows 2000 before I start. So here's the control panel in Windows 2000. These are the only things, the only controls that you have. I mean, we have the administrative tools panel here too, but essentially you have this is all of it. This is all the configuration that you can do, apart from some other dialog boxes like, the folder options here, and, you got your taskbar options. This is basically the whole OS, right? But if you look at Windows 10, for instance, Windows 10, there's two different control panels. There's two different control panels in Windows 10. One is the old style, which has a zillion control panel applets, and the other is the new style control panel, which has a ton of settings, and these settings sometimes don't affect each other. They look different, they act different. It's just it's a mess, honestly. And looking at something like this at Windows 2000, where the surface area, the total surface area of the UI in this OS is so small that I feel like I remember the entire thing. And it's like actually practical for someone to know every inch of this operating system. And I don't really think that's possible nowadays with Windows 10 or modern versions of Mac OS. And don't even get me started on Linux. But there's a lot more to say, but I will say that one of the reasons I like Windows 2000 the most out of the old OSs is that it was right before Windows NT went mainstream with XP, and it was just usable enough for everyone, but not they hadn't quite sort of let their designers go crazy and say, oh, let's reimagine the computing experience that we've all been using for the past 30 years. Let's do something totally new. What we had worked, and anyone can learn this, right? Like, I learned these operating systems when I was like 10 years old. So if I can do that when I'm 10 years old, then my grandma could do it if she just stretched her mind just a tiny bit. And so I think that the modern drive toward making user interfaces as simple and as easy to use as possible is like, it's almost patronizing in a way, where the software companies, they treat the users as if they couldn't possibly understand this advanced stuff that's going on inside this machine that they bought, when really it's not that complicated. And one of the goals with this stream is to sort of make that clear. I also want to sing some praises here of the of Microsoft Visual C++ 6.0, and I just want you to watch when I press the enter key, when I click on this icon. I just want you to watch how quickly this entire development environment, this thing that you can use to write applications that can do, and I'm going to say literally anything, because computers, Church and Turing proved that computers can do literally anything. With this programming environment, you can do literally anything. You can build applications like, the same ones you use normally, and look at how fast this loads. Look at that. There wasn't even time for me to say anything in between. Look at this. Look at this. Look at that. Visual Studio 2019, I use it every day for work, and it takes on the order of 10 seconds to launch. 10 seconds. It's just like absolutely absurd, because computers now, back when I was running Windows 2000 as a kid, my computer was 300 megahertz. I was running Windows 2000 on a 300 megahertz AMD Duron CPU, and the Duron was like the crappy CPU that you just never wanted to buy. But we didn't have any money, so that's what I had. And you could still do anything with it. Today, my MacBook is, my computer is like, it's like 3.6 gigahertz. So it's literally, I mean, it's so much faster than computers back in the day. But yet everything we do nowadays is slower. It's kind of incomprehensible. The thing is, it actually is comprehensible, and working as a software engineer, I know exactly why it's happening. It's because the layers of abstractions that we place, that we just pile up day after day, and we say, oh, well, this layer won't matter. It's not going to be that slow. this layer won't matter. It's not going to be that slow. Let's just keep making this easier and easier to use. And what you end up with is something like modern web development, where you have to run like 3 different transpilers to compile your JavaScript into a bundle that you download, and you download every web page is like 3 megabytes. If you go to twitter.com, it's like a megabyte of JavaScript that you have to download. And like, it's just absolutely mind-boggling the way that computing has evolved. Because if we had started from where this is, and we had kept with the ideals that we obviously had back then. One of my idols is Justin Frankel, the developer of Winamp, and he kept the same philosophy throughout the entire time that he was working on his projects. And he's developing a he did Winamp, he did Nutella, which is the basically the forerunner of modern file sharing programs. And right now he works on a music production environment called Reaper. They're all so good. I think that if we had stuck with writing applications the way we did back in the day, there's no telling what software could be like nowadays. There are still plenty of programmers out there who write good code, and like, obviously I know that business is like, it's complicated, right? And there are reasons why software has to do this and that, but it seems like we kind of lost our way at some point, and I'm pretty sure it was around the mid-2000s. But right now, I'm going to pretend like we're still in 1999 or 2000, and we're going to write some C code. And I'm going to stick with C tonight because it's very simple, and it's a language that you can know sort of the whole thing without really without doing a ton of studying. C++, I think it's my favorite language, but it requires a lot of internalizing a lot of crazy stuff. And so I think tonight I'm going to use C to develop our Notepad clone. Does anyone have a suggestion for a name for this Notepad clone? Otherwise, I'm just going to call it Buttpad or something like that. Buttpad. Text edit. Nah. Text edit. Don't even get me started on text edit. On Mac OS X, it's basically Notepad, except 1,000 times slower for no reason at all. I have no idea why it's so slow. I will call it... I like a C note. I like Typer, actually. Let's call it Typer. Typer. Project name Typer. Empty project. Let's do an empty project. Start completely from scratch. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a C file. I'm going to add a C file. Let's call it typer.c. I'm going to include windows.h here, which is where all the good stuff is. And let's press F7 to build it. And it's built. So I'm going to add a breakpoint here and just try debug it. See if we can start the program so we can get in there. And looks like the breakpoint was hit. I think we're good to go. All right. So the first thing we need to do when we're creating a window on Windows is we have to register a window class. And a window class is it's a concept sort of like, if you have a window class like the edit control, like we're going to be using later. The edit control is a kind of window that you use over and over and over again. So this is a way for you to reuse the window types that you make. Let's use window class EX, and let's call it. Let's just call it WC. I'm gonna use this zero initialization syntax here, and the first member is a size member, which allows Windows to detect which version of this structure that you're using. I might actually have to look up a lot of stuff, but that'll be okay because I have MSDN installed. I have the documentation for the entire Windows API installed on this computer, and it was like 600 megabytes. Crazy. So if I need to look anything up, I'm just going to look it up here. Let's look. I am going to try and do as much of it from memory as possible. And let's just say, let's just do this WinProc here. Let's typer WinProc. And I'm going to do register class EX. How about... And let's write our WinProc. And the WinProc is the function in our program that when we register a window class, we give it a pointer to our window proc, which is a window procedure. And this is the function that's going to handle all of the events that we receive from Windows. Typer WinProc, hwind, and that's uint message, wparam, lparam. And I'm going to return... And here's our window proc. Let's see if that builds. Pointers to functions with different attributes. lresult callback. I forgot the callback annotation here. There we go. So I like to press build way too much here because I like to press build way too much here because it's fast. It's so fast. I can just build it instantly, and it's not going to take me a billion years like building software nowadays. So let's see what happens when we try to register this. I don't know if this is all of the stuff that I need, but it might be. Ah, I see. And the return value there of register class EX was 0. And what does 0 mean when it returns? If the function fails, the return value is 0. To get extended error information, call getLastError. So I'm going to add a variable here to keep track of our error in case we have one. So let's do if oh yeah, the debugger can show the last error with the Thanks, Josh. Let's just do that. Okay, that's 6. Let's do getLastError. Okay. Error codes. See, look at this. Handle's invalid. Okay. I see what it is. There's a bunch of stuff in here that's not null. So let's just go ahead and zero memory. Let's just zero memory. Is that going to work? Yeah. So I'm assuming there's some sort of handle in there, like the cursor, or the background, or the icon. Oh, I see that. The instance. That's probably what it is. Okay. Oh, I see. Class name. Class name is Typer. All right. So first off, we need to change. We need to change the settings here so that we are using Unicode. And by default, Windows projects back in the day used to be ASCII only. And so I'm going to change this project to use Unicode by default. All right. Error is now 2. So system cannot find the file specified. Find that typer. Const w chart t typer win class equals typer. And we're going to replace this one here. So we can use the same symbol here in both places. All right. There we go. So I'm going to set a breakpoint in my I'm going to set a breakpoint in the WinProc just to see if it gets created. And I'm going to set one here too. All right, so our window has been created. Except it didn't do anything. So for now, what are we going to do? We're going to handle the WM create message. And what we're going to do here is whenever our window is created, we are going to get a specific message from Windows called WM create. And whenever our window is closed, we're going to get a message called WM close. So let's just add a message box here. Closed. Typer. Missing semicolon, I see. Oh. So it's been a while since I've used I see. My switch was not closed. Yeah. Illegal use of this type as an expression. I don't know what they're talking about with that. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. What do we got going on here? So, Rust. It would be nice to use Rust, but I'm not doing that right now. How about I rename this project, this file here? I see. It's still another brace mismatch. There we go. All right. So, can I add a breakpoint? What do we got? We got a message box saying that our window is created. And it immediately closes. And the reason it's immediately closing is because we do not have a message pump. So it's just executing this line, this create window call, and then it's immediately exiting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the message pump. I think that's how the message pump goes. I'll have to look it up. I'm trying to do as much of this from memory as possible before I start looking at docs. I'm going to look up get message right now. Oh, there's my illusion was broken. Message pump. All right. I think we're good. Created the window. So where is our window? Oh, it needs to be shown. Let's show our window. Let's show it whenever we get created. All right, so we got a window now, and it's got nothing in it. So it's just copying the buffer that was under it. And the next thing that we need to do is create our edit control. And for now, I'm going to create a structure here that will contain our app, sort of the state of our app. I'm going to keep writing as if I'm writing C. So let's do type def struct app state. And let's write another structure for our documentation, or for our document. And the document will have a file name with max path and here in our app state, let's keep the window handle. And let's keep the instance. Maybe even an icon. Maybe even a font if we get that far. All right. Okie dokie. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm gonna add an underscore here just for the consistency with the other typer function. All right. We got that. The next thing we're going to do is create the edit control. And the edit control is going to be the text box that we type into whenever we're using the program. I'm going to do a short interlude and talk about this Jolt Cola I have that was in the refrigerator. And Jolt Cola was a famous like hacker cola in the mid 90s, late 90s, known for its high caffeine. And it's been in the fridge for a long time, and I just wanted to try it out. Tastes like cola. Okay. Yeah, energy drink ads. I think you can kind of count on that whenever you're watching a stream from me. Okay. What was I doing? I created a structure for my app state. I'm just going to use some global variables here because that's what I'm all about tonight. So, the nice part about global variables is that they're always around, and you don't have to worry about, is this thing in scope right now? And I know that people, I know how people are, how they feel about globals, but I'll tell you what, when you're writing something that's just going to be one file, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. You don't really have to listen to to anyone whenever you're making anything, especially if you're making art, like if you're working in an industrial software engineering sense, you can sort of yeah, you'll have to write code that other people are going to be able to read, and you're going to have to write code that's maintainable and abstracted well and stuff. But if you're doing something on your own, do whatever you want. Yeah, I think maybe the speedrun aspect is not really happening, but I'm having fun either way. I think we can get pretty far in the next hour, hour and a half. Okay. Let's give my app object the instance. The H instance here is essentially a handle to the application module, and by module I mean Windows' internal representation or its internal record of the process that's running. What are we doing? All right, so when our window is created, the first thing we want to do here is create the edit control. And the edit control is going to be, we're going to create that in the same way that we did down here. My cursor is not showing up anymore, and I don't think I'll be able to do anything about that. But this line here, where we do this create window EX call, that's how we create any window in Windows. So we're going to do the same thing here with our edit control. app.hwindEdit equals create window ex. Let's do the same style, and let's do edit for the class name, and we'll do an empty window name because that will show up as text in our edit control. The style, let's do ws_child. And that will indicate that this is a child window. And let's just do ES, what is it, ES multi-line? I'll see if that's real. It might not be real. And we're going to position that at 0, 0 on our window. And the width and the height. This is a good time to stop and talk about positioning. So I'm gonna make a variable called rect here in a second, and that's going to contain our I'll say width and height just to make it more obvious to everyone. hwin parent, and this parameter is the parent window that we're using, which is this window. No menu. The instance is our app.hinstance, and this lparam, you can pass a pointer or sort of a structure, a data structure to any window, and it'll associate that pointer with the window, and you can use that later on to, to associate it with a C++ object or some kind of context. But here, I'm just going to use null. And these variables width and height, I'm going to make this call called getClientRect. Here, I'm going to do a variable of type rect, which essentially is a structure that has these members. It has bottom, left top, right and bottom. And it will give us the size, the extent of our window. Okay. And if we wanted to have separate variables for width and height, then we could do something like int width and height. And in this case, we would say something like, in order to calculate the width, we would do width equals rect, the rightmost coordinate minus the left coordinate, and the height is the rect bottom minus the rect top. And with this, we should have our rectangle. Let's see what the rectangle is right now. Why did the music stop? Oh, I see. I don't see How about I'm going to start Winamp again. Winamp is not starting. Are we going to have to do some debugging of the actual of the computer here? Why is Winamp not starting? Uh-oh. How about I restart the computer really quick. Check the event log. I'm not... do I really have to do this? Not really seeing anything. Oh, it was in the process list. Oh, there it is. I did not see it. It's probably... Oh, there we go. This is just what happens when you're using computers. Okay. How about I am just going to play the music over here so I do not get distracted. Yeah, it is very fast. It's like it's kind of astonishing how fast it is. Okay, where were we? Okay, our width and height have values, so I think we're good there. Now, I think the first thing that we're going to do here is, after we've got our edit control created, I didn't check to see if it was created properly. It was created. It's being created. Let's just see if we got anything. We do not have anything quite yet. So, I'm going to do a handler for WM size, and WM size will allow us to move our child windows around in response to the window being resized. So I'll do, I will move this calculation down here to WM size. And I'm going to call the Windows API move window. All right. All right. So what do we got here? We got some stuff to type in. So we're making some good progress. I don't know if you can see me typing. I'm typing in Typer. Okay. So now that we've got some the edit control working, I'm going to remove this style, this WESEX client edge style on the original window because we have it on our edit control. And let's look at the window now. In response to WM close, let me just say destroy window. And in response to WM destroy, I will quit the program by calling post quit message. And post quit message posts a message to our message loop here that essentially will cause this get message call to return false, which means that this while loop will exit, and then we will exit the program. Got some errors. Did I miss a brace? I keep missing the braces. I think I'm used to modern IDEs that add the brace for me. I'm getting soft. Okay. I don't know what the deal is with this border here. Okay. We resize it once and we're good. All right. So it kind of looks like Notepad already. Okay. So the first thing we want to do now that we have our edit control working is we want to add the menu so that we can open and save files. First off, I just want to ask, is the music too loud right now? Okay, sounds good. Can't hear any music. I'm turning it up. Can you hear it now? You should be able to hear Twilight Zone. Okay. Wish I would have known that earlier. It's okay, though. Okay. Edit control. What are we doing here? Menu. We're adding a menu. So in Windows, the simplest way to add menus and other resources is using the resource editor. And I'm going to have to add a resource file to this project. Here I will add a new file called typer.rc of type resource script here. And this folder means it's empty. And I am going to insert a menu. Say file. Ever see a file menu getting created? Adding those little underlines there so that you know where to type. Open, ... And the ... means that there's a dialog that's going to show up when you click the button. I'm going to do save. So this is not the form editor. This is actually just the resource editor. So the visual part of Visual C++, I think that it was called Visual C++ before there was actually any kind of visual anything. So I think the name doesn't really mean anything. Okay, so we got open and save. That's basically all you need. So in order to access... Oh, help about. Let's add help about. Help. About. Okay. File and help. You don't need anything else. You can also make menus programmatically. And menus are actually windows. So essentially what happens when you click on a menu is it creates a internal Windows like Windows only window called it just shows the menu. Okay. So in order to access, let's rename this first off to IDM for menu _ typer. typer. And in order to access the symbols of our resource files, we need to include the automatically generated resource.h file. Okay. So we got some, what's in our, let's move this .rc over to our resource files, and let's add our resource H file to the project so we can see what's going on. So inside this resource.h file, we have define entries here for our menu items. I'm just going to close that. All right, so how do we tell Windows that we want this menu to be associated with this window? Well, we return here to our window class, and we will use this structure member, LPSZ menu name. And without going into too much detail, the prefixes on these variables are called what's called Hungarian notation. And that's in reference to some Microsoft employee who was Hungarian, who had this notation of naming variables where the type of the variable was indicated in the first few letters of the identifier name. And here LPSZ means long pointer to a string with a 0 at the end. LPSZ. It's pretty ridiculous. And we're going to use a function here called load. What is it? Load menu. And we're going to pass the instance, and which is again the exe module and the menu name. And here, what we will say is there's a macro that that's called make int resource, and we pass it our identifier. So here, our identifier was IDM typer. And what make int resource does, const unsigned short. Is this how I do this? Oh no, I think I can just do make int resource IDM typer. Let's see if that works. Do I even need to load the menu? Let's see. Oh man, the song is good. Oh, here we go. We got open, we got save, exit, help, and about. Oh, we're pretty much 99% of the way there. Alrighty. Now, how do we handle what happens when the user clicks on the menu? We use WM command, which is the window message that's sent to our windows whenever the user does something like click a button or does something with a menu. So let's look up the documentation for WM command here. I think the actual ID of what happens is in the W parameter. So it's the low word of the ID. So it's the low word of the W param is the ID. So let's say word. Let's just say uint. Uint ID equals low word W param. So these macros, low word and high word, were originally part of the 16-bit Windows. The 16-bit Windows, and in 16-bit Windows, the size of a word was was 16 bits. Okay, so we have the ID here. And our ID is going to be ID file open is what we're going to worry about. Actually, let's try exit first, since that's easier to implement. And for exit, let's just call destroy window. I'm going to set a breakpoint here just to make sure that we have hit this. So here's typer. Going to go to exit. Oh, here we go. And we're exiting. So what do we do next? The next course of action is to handle the open menu. And what do we do in response to the open menu? We will show the dialog box where the user can choose a file to load. And the API, I believe, is called get open file name. Yeah, there we go. We'll have to create a structure here called, I think it's open file name. And I believe this has a similar size member. And it'll take our instance, which is app.instance. The owner window is going to be our window. The title, let's just give it a constant title of open a file for us to read in typer. Just some long bullcrap, but just for test purposes. And these other members, I'm not sure what they're doing yet, but I'm just going to test this really quick and see if it even does anything. Okay. It is not doing anything. Not sure why it's not doing anything. I'm gonna just comment this out and give us a message box. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'll try and answer them. I've been trying to concentrate on this, but it's nice to hang out too. Opening test. I need to remove this one. It's difficult because I can't see my cursor anymore. I think it's a VirtualBox bug. Okay. Why is it that I can handle exit but not open? What's going on here? Okay. Well, everything looks like it should work. That's the beauty of programming. Everything looks like it should work, but it doesn't work. What's going on here? Let's just try the other one. Save. Low word call. No, that is what it should be. Yeah, the low order word and W param. It's the menu item control. Yeah, that is right. Saving. Okay. So we get no save, no open. We got exit. How about help about? I looked at resource H. What is the value of 1, 2, 3, 4? 4001, 4002. Let's just inspect the value of $57601. You know what I bet that is? I bet that's some sort of Windows constant. For file open. We already heard this earlier. Yeah, I think what this is this is some sort of inbuilt constant that we are. How about, what if I just comment this? Yeah, it's still builds. Not sure what's going on. Any tip for a product designer in terms of optimizing workflow with dev teams? I mean, I would say just try and talk to them like they can understand what you're saying and try and understand what they're saying. I think that commonly there's this tendency in designers interacting with programmers and vice versa, where you sort of like try and like abstract your language or dumb down the things that you're saying so that they can understand you or that you can understand them. Just try and get in their heads as much as you can, and try and let them get in your head as much as you can let them. I have no idea what's going on here. I'm just gonna say, yeah, there's a bunch of like predefined menu items IDs here, and I think what's happening is that, yeah, I see. How about So I did not actually move the file. Yeah, that's what it was. Or yeah, that's what it was. There were predefined sort of like Windows default ID file open and ID file save symbols that were like, they must have been somehow overriding the ones that I had in my resource.h, and because I had named them the same thing. It's very confusing. I don't know why that is the way that it was, but looks like we're good now. Okay. I'm going to make sure that I have... So just, to return back to the previous question, which was how do I get developers to understand me as a product designer? I interact with not too many designers nowadays, but I used to interact with a lot of them, and I think that there's a bunch of stuff that goes on where the designers want something to be done in a certain way, and the engineers do not want to do it because they'll come up with some excuse that says something like, I can't do that because of this. We don't have this this UI element. That doesn't exist. We can't do that. Essentially, they're always lying. With a computer, you can build anything you want. I think you just need to, with that particular hang-up, you just need to find a way to let them know that you can do anything that you want on a computer, and that they can do it, and find a way to encourage them to want to do it the right way. But also, the engineers might have some good things to say about the way that UI design should work too. We use computers all day, every day, so it's not like we don't know what's going on. So take what they say seriously. Okay, where are we where are we with the programming? Loading our file here. I'm going to fill in our about box. Typer version 0.1 about. Is everyone here Captain Jack right now? Okay. Open a file for us to read in Typer. So we got nothing here in our file name and nothing here in our files of type indicator. So I'm going to have to look up the documentation for that stuff really quick because I don't remember how to do that. But I think it's kind of... Thankfully, I have mostly avoided documentation so far. Pointer to open file name. The filter is what we're looking for. It's a pointer to expects a pointer to a buffer containing pairs of null terminated filter strings. The last string in the buffer must be terminated by 2 null characters. Okay, the first string in each pair is a display string that describes the filter, like text files, and the second string specifies the pattern, like star.txt. Okay, I think I remember how to do this. ofn.lpstr what is it? Filter equals text files. Let's put a null in there. Yeah, null in there. Star.txt and all files. Star.star and 2 null characters at the end. Let's see what we got there. This is the first programming stream I've ever done. Hopefully everyone's enjoying it. I'm just trying to, it's a new experiment for me. I've mostly been doing game stuff and food reviews, but I think this is what I do all day for work, so maybe not this exact thing, but something like it. Okay. Oh, it's needs to be a wide string there. Okay, execute typer. All right, here we got text files, all files. Let's go to Z, go to junk. Oh, look, we got some text. And I'm going to click on one, and it's not going to do anything. And the reason it's not going to do anything is because after we called get open file name, we didn't do anything with the file that we got. But it's progress. Okay, so after we call this, get open file name should return, I think it returns a bool. Yeah, it returns a bool. And so if we have a result here, then let's, I think it's in OFN dot, let me look at the documentation again. Okay. Where's the file name? Okay, so we have to provide our own buffer for the file name. File name buffer. Max path. 0 memory. Okay, so now after we call this, we should have a complete, we should have the UI for the open dialog happen on some kind of coroutine or something. No, it does not. The main thread, so it doesn't really block so much. Like the main thread, with respect to the code that I have running here, it appears to block here. But what's actually happening is that Windows shows this dialog box, and then the dialog box is processing all of the messages that are happening. And the thread is still running, and it's still processing messages. It's just that, you know, the control flow here never comes out of here. And the reason is because the dialog box has its own message pump. So when the dialog box is shown, it has its own sort of copy of this loop right here. And there are plenty of ways that we could write this in a more like robust and modern way, but I think that for the purposes of doing it as quickly and as simply as possible, this works out for us. Just doing everything on the UI thread. Because it's Notepad or it's Typer. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, it's art, so it doesn't have to be robust. I think when you're messing around and you're trying to just do whatever, just trying to build applications, like whenever I first learned how to make stuff, like obviously it's important to find out the best way of doing things, but if you get ahead of yourself and you don't know how to do something, trying to figure out the best way of doing it, which might be hard for you to understand at the moment, like with your skill level, could just kind of distract you. So I think if you're trying to make something and you can get away with doing it the absolute crappiest way possible, just do that first off. Okay. Let's see what we're gonna do here. Okay. So what do we got here in our file name buffer? It's not showing us the string. That's fine. I didn't need to see it anyway. Some things I think have advanced. So we have an output window. Debug. Yeah, here we got our path right here, which was outputted with output debug file string, output debug string W here. Yeah, song was really good. Am I taking song recommendations? Now I have a playlist. So if you would just want to wait around, you'll probably hear something cool coming up after this. So who do we got in the chat right now? Matt Violas, what do you think of the stream so far? Do you have any suggestions? Okay, so what are we going to do with our file name after we got it? We're going to open the file, and then we're going to read the contents of the file, and we're going to put the contents of the file into the edit control, and we're going to forget about the contents because the edit control has its own storage, and that way we don't have to keep track of the text at all. We can put the text in the edit control, do our editing, and then when we're going to save, we get it out. We get it out of the edit control, then we write it to the file, and we're good to go. In a real modern application, what you would do is you would, if you were writing your own text editor and you were writing like the actual editor control, what you would do is, you would have to keep track of the position of characters on the screen. You'd have to keep track of like the extent of like how long, certain extents of texts are and stuff like this. But because we're using the Windows Edit control, it's saving us a ton of work here. And all right, let's just offload this to a function called typer load open file. File name buffer. We'll pass this file name buffer to our open file function. Let's say typer open file const wchar pointer file name. And what we're going to do in this function is we're going to open the file handle, read the contents of the file, insert the contents into the edit control. If everything's okay, return true. All right, what do we got? So opening the file handle, we will use create file, which is the handle, which is the function that you use in Windows to open files. And we're going to declare our handle for our file. Windows has a common handle type for all kernel objects. Handle file equals create file. Now look at that. Look at that prototype there. That's a beautiful prototype. We got file name. Now I never remember what this is. Let's say I'm gonna have to look this up, but yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up. Creates or opens the following objects and returns a handle that can be used to access the object. generic read or generic write? Let's say generic read. What's after that? File share, read, file share, write, file share, read. The IntelliSense here is not super advanced. I'm going to say null for my security attributes. I'm going to say creation disposition. Create all, wait, no. Open existing, right? Yeah, open existing. Flags and attributes. How about 0? How about null? What's the flags? File attribute normal. I don't think we actually need anything there. All right, so create file. If return values. If the function fails, the return value is invalid handle value. If file equals invalid handle value, let's assume success. If it's not invalid handle value, then let's we want to close the file, right? Close handle file, and then up here we're going to do our work. We're going to do, let's reorder these comments. Don't know why I just didn't copy all those at once. Okay, read the contents of the file. Now this is going to be the annoying part, and what we can do multiple things here. We can have a fixed size buffer, and then we can loop over the file, and we can sort of like, you know, we can allocate a big buffer for our text, and then we can have a fixed size buffer that we read parts of the file into, and then concatenate those parts into our text buffer that we eventually pass to the we eventually pass to the edit control. Or we could do something really brain dead and do something like get the complete size of the file and read the entire file at once. And I'm not sure which one I prefer right now, but I think, how about, do we have read file? Yeah, we have read file, file, buffer, number of bytes to read, number of bytes read, and then the overlapped handle. So we have, in this buffer, let's just do the buffer way, number of bytes to read. So, read file. While read file, let's declare our buffer. Let's do enum buff size equals, I don't know, 4096. Let's do byte buffer buff size. There's a question from the chat. At this point, did Windows have APIs to read files asynchronously? Yes. It has what's called overlapped I/O, and that's what the last parameter here on your read file call deals with. It's the prototype's not showing. I'll show it right here. This LP overlap. That overlapped handle is sort of like a handle to a mechanism that you can use to read files asynchronously. And yes, I will be blocking the main thread while we read the file, but it's going to be so fast it doesn't even matter. Jolt Cola, it's working. All right, what do we got? So while we are reading the extent of the file, we will I'm trying to think if I want to do something really stupid, like allocate some giant buffer that I will copy the contents into, or if I want to directly insert this text into the edit control as I'm reading the file. Anyone have any opinions on stream? I'll do whichever one. I think directly inserting the text would be pretty funny. How about... Yeah, what I'm thinking is like... Yeah, I think I'll just create some giant 1 meg buffer. Let's say byte file buffer equals yeah, I do not care about buffer overflows. I do not care about anything right now. All I want to do is make a really crappy notepad. So how about 1024 times 1024. Yeah, functionality first, perfection later. I think that's a great way to go. And let's have a position. D-word position equals 0. And my math actually might be wrong here, but I'll fix it if it breaks. That's the beauty of programming, is that, you know, normally, like, you don't get to see people's really stupid thought processes while they do this kind of stuff. You see, like, the committed code of the thing that works. And, you know, there's plenty of people have, you know, like, sometimes you go into work and you have a bad day and you can't think too much and you can't think very well. So what you do is you do something the absolute crappiest way possible. Then you do it a better way. Then you do it a better way and a better way. And what ends up getting committed to the code base is the thing that's good. And people never even saw the crappy part. But here, you get to see the crappy part. All right, so there's a variable here called DW red, and I'm just going to rename this to red, bytes red. Yeah, I'll turn up the music a little bit. I'm going to go till 10. That's my plan. All right. So bytes red, when we call read file here on this file handle, what we're going to get is it's going to modify this bytes red variable and show how many bytes it took from the file, and we're going to increment the position that we have, that we're keeping track of right here, by that amount after we copy it into our buffer, into our big buffer. So we have the small buffer here, which is, let's rename it to read buffer. Read buffer. And let's say mem copy. And that is the first is the destination. Destination is file buffer plus our let's do, actually I can just do this with pointers. I could just totally do this with pointers. How about byte pointer file position equals file buffer, and then we can do read buffer bytes red, and then file position plus equals bytes red. Let's see if this builds. Well, it builds. Does this look right to everybody? Okay. Hey, Ian. I just want to welcome to the chat Ian Han, or Ian Hanshin, aka Furin. One of my oldest friends here, along with Violus. These guys taught me everything I know. So got to give a shout out to Ian here. There is a question. Were there helper libraries that people used that would abstract all of these common tasks so that you wouldn't need all that boilerplate? Well, I think, yeah, essentially. What you end up doing when you write this kind of code for long enough is you end up building up your own sort of libraries. I think that it depends on the application, right? So there's all sorts of different framework things for Windows. There's MFC, which was kind of the first one. The first one that everyone used, and it was C++ based kind of like wrapper framework. There were a ton of other stuff, other frameworks out there. Like WTL, the Windows Template Library, ATL, the Active Template Library. And people use the C++ standard library and the C standard library. Here in this stream, I'm not using any C library functions at all, except for memcopy here, which I'm just going to assume compiles down to a compiler intrinsic and is not a C runtime library function. So no CRT being used in this code right now, as far as I know. I'm not really going to go too hard on making sure that that's the case, but as far as I can tell, there's no CRT stuff going on right now. Okay, so what do we got? It looks like this should work. Insert the contents into the edit control. If everything's okay, return true. So at the very end, we will need some kind of null terminator. So let's say file position equals 0. That should be the last one. Yeah, there's tons of frameworks that people use on Windows, like cross-platform stuff, like Qt or Qt, that abstract this kind of stuff away. It's just, the thing is, like, when you're, I'm gonna talk about something a little really quick. When you're writing a program, I think using frameworks is helpful, right? But it's also really important to know what the frameworks are doing. It's really important to be able to write the code at the very bottom level. And the reason that's important is because you need to know what's going on your computer, especially if you're a programmer, right? Like, you don't want to just say, okay, like, I'm going to call this function. I have no clue what it really does, but, as long as it gets the job done, whatever. Like, if you do that over and over and over again, you really don't have a complete picture of what's happening inside your program. So I think that at the very least, trying to dabble in the low-level stuff every once in a while is a good idea. Kind of lost my place here with the code, but I'll get back into it in a second. Maybe I should start talking. There's also another concept I wanted to talk about, which is when you're trying to solve a problem, you want to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And when you use a framework, that framework is trying to solve a bunch of other problems that you don't actually have right now. So if you're writing a solution to a problem and you're using a framework and you get the job done, that's great. It really depends on what you want, right? But if you're trying to write something that works as fast as possible, or you're trying to make the most sort of the what's the word for it? The most aesthetically elegant solution to the problem. The most elegant solution to your problem is not loading up 100 megabytes of Qt DLLs to, read a string from a file, right? Like, you don't need that. You can just use read file. And it's only going to take you like 10 minutes, and it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. I mean, I'm going to say that. I'm going to run this. This is going to crash, but eventually we'll get there. This is kind of my first attempt in a while to, you know, try to talk while I'm programming. So it might be a little rocky at first. Okay. Let's just see what we got inside the file. I'm just going to dump it into the edit control. Let's say, send message. App.hwind edit. WM set text. Is that what I want to use? Probably. 0. How about let's just cast this to lparam wchart file buffer. And this would be insane. This is like an insane way of writing a program, but unhandled exception. Playing devil's advocate. Yeah, it is true that we are all taking advantage of some level of abstraction that we don't understand. And if you're like, obviously I'm calling read file here or create file, and I don't know exactly what's happening inside of that. So it is true that I don't know like the complete details. But whenever you're trying to solve a problem, like there is like there are levels of abstraction that you can choose from, you know? Like here there's only so low that I can go on Windows. I actually can't really open the file if I don't call create file. So even if I was writing this program in assembly, I would still have to call create file if I wanted to open the file. It's true that I could read the disk, I could open the disk, and that I could find the file in the file system manually, like just seeking through the disk and finding it. But on Windows, if you're writing a Windows app, you can't go much lower than this, right? You could call the kernel functions that do it, but I think it's important to go as low as you can, at least sometimes for fun, right? Like, you don't have to do this all the time, but just explore your computer. So, what was I doing? I need to shut up and start programming. My speed run is not happening. I'm just going to comment that out really quick. Now I've got a Stack Overflow already. What could it be? Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Ian or Matt, you got any suggestions? So why would I have... Yeah, it literally crashes at the beginning of this open file function. Yeah. How about Can I add this down here somewhere? Does VS let you show local types and show size? Yeah, so you can add a bunch of stuff to do that, but I don't really want to mess with the debugging stuff too much. Yeah, you're right. Good call, Ash. I don't know why I didn't think about that. That is the problem. Let's just allocate that really quick in the let's do should I use global alloc? I don't even remember what the parameters to this are. So thanks for joining, Awesome Kling, Andreas. I really appreciate you watching the stream. I've been inspired a lot lately by your operating system Serenity. It's kind of made me think about what I want from computers lately. Yeah. I'm just looking at the parameters here. We heard blue earlier. Okay, how about... Yeah, I don't know why I thought... I don't know why I thought it was okay to allocate a megabyte on the stack. The stack was probably a megabyte. Gotta get rid of that colon. Okay. Can you hear the music now? Okay. I think I'm not using read file correctly. Okay. Okay. This should be returning for me. Why is it not returning? Yep. What is error into... Do I have to do that? Oh, I see. I have to actually check for bytes read. Okay. Yeah, so this stream is about creating your own Notepad, if you really want to do that. Okay, there we go. We got the text read, and let's see if we can just slam it in the edit control right away. I'm kind of expecting a crash. Yeah, to talk a little bit more about Serenity, the guy in the chat here who joined earlier, Awesome Kling, he's been writing his own OS from scratch, and it sort of emulates the aesthetic of this kind of era of operating systems, and it's my favorite era. And I was just I did a hobby OS with another of my old school IRC buddies in the mid 2000s, and seeing Serenity just took me back. I'm like, I got to do that again. So I've been doing some Dance Dance Revolution stuff lately. So I haven't really been working on the OS recently, but now that the tournament that we just held is over, I'm going to get back to it. Okay, so we got a bunch of bullshit in here, and it's because we are Unicode and the text file is ASCII. So I will need to, for each one of these, for each part of this buffer that we're reading, I'm going to convert this to Unicode. So how about, are there any APIs that I can do? WCS to, no, wide string to, what is it? Multibyte to wide char? Multibyte to wide char. But yeah, Serenity's really cool. Give Andreas Kling here a follow, and just like, I don't know, look his stuff up on GitHub. It's a really cool project. All right. So what do we got? Multibyte to wide char. CP. How about? It's probably, let's just say ANSI code page. And let's just do pointer to the string to be converted. Let's say read buffer, and let's say bytes read is the length of the string. And again, this is very hacky, but let's put the file position in here, and let's do the size and wide characters of the buffer pointed to by the... Do I really need another buffer here? I probably do need another buffer, to be honest. How about unibuffer, Unicode buffer? See, this is getting a little complicated, because if we wanted to make this if we wanted to do this the right way, we would detect the encoding of the text file, and then we would behave differently depending on the encoding. But right here, I'm just going to assume that we are loading an ASCII encoded file, and that we are going to convert that to Unicode. If we opened a Unicode file and we did this conversion, then it would break. So, but in this case, I'm just going to assume that it is not gonna happen. So then set window text A. Yeah. Ian to the rescue. I can just do set window text A. I don't even need to do the Unicode conversion. I can just let Windows do it. Great idea. I'm just going to be completely hacky. How about... So, the abstraction, yeah, I am leaning on the Windows API here a little bit, but to explain what's going on exactly. Almost every Windows API that takes a string as a parameter comes in two flavors. It comes in the A flavor and the W flavor. And the A flavor is for multi-byte or ASCII encodings, like sort of like pre-Unicode encodings, and the W flavors of the functions take wide characters, which in this case, in Windows, I believe it's UCS 16 encoding. Okay, what do we got? Let's just pass it. File buffer. Is this going to work? Let's see. What do we got? So we got some text. And this is a list of software that I installed earlier on the Windows VM. So we've got file loading. And we can type in here. So we're good. And we have not implemented anything like asking to close, so I'm just going to close it there. So now that we've got opening files, let's do saving files. Oh, I really didn't do much here. So let's clean up this function a bit. How about let's just assume that if file position is not the beginning of file buffer, then if it is the same as, so if file position was the same as, if the pointer file position was the same address as the beginning of file buffer, then we didn't read any files, or we didn't read any bytes from the file, and there was nothing to do. So I think we're good here. Again, there's a zillion things that you could do to make this more robust, but we're not doing that right now. Okay, so for save file, what we're going to do is we're going to take the contents of the edit control, and we're going to use get window text A. The parameters are the window handle, so we're going to use app hwind. We're going to provide it a buffer. Let's say file. Let's call it file buffer, and let's say buff size. And get window text returns the length of the string. Google Analytics. I see. Okay. Write file. What do we got? File. Let's just try and slam the whole thing in there without doing any kind of like any of the same kind of chunked buffering that we were doing earlier. So if file is not invalid handle value, and dword bytes written equals 0. If write file, if bytes written equals length, then I believe we have succeeded. And this is what we used to call pyramid code back in the day. It's where you have a bunch of nested ifs going all the way to the right, and you make a big triangle going down the side of your editor. There's a bunch of different ways you can obviously program computers or write C or C++, but you can do multiple returns. If you fail, you can return immediately, or you can do single return. I think single return is probably the easiest to understand, especially if you're writing C, which I'm more or less doing right now. Oh, if succeeded. Yeah. Okay. So what do we got? Got to make sure to, if the file is not invalid, close handle. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I could be using goto. Another shout out to Jolt Cola. Yeah, goto cleanup is, it's fine. You can do it. Okay, this function looks like it should work. I don't know if it will. Oh, I did not deallocate this buffer up here. It doesn't even really matter, but let's say global free. Two. Yeah, I just didn't. I didn't even bother to deallocate that buffer. Okay, got some errors here. Up. Misplaced semicolon. Signed, unsigned mismatch. Cool. Welcome to the chat, Omar. Omar is another computer guy here. He's username OSNR. I recommend you follow him on Twitter. To all my programmers in the chat, follow him on Twitter at RSNOUS on Twitter. Okay, cool. We got a signed unsigned mismatch here. I don't care about it. So let's do. We actually didn't even hook up anything in the saving, so I think that's our next goal. So in order to save the file, we can either open the dialog box to ask the user what file name they want to save with, or we can save the file in the same location as they opened. And obviously, those are normally two different operations. So we have save, and we have save as. Let's add ID typer, file save as. So for the save, what we're going to have to do to implement save correctly is we're going to need to keep track of the current file name that we're using. So we are going to, once we have this file name, is this in a VM or are we doing VGA capture? I am using a VM right now. I have a second monitor that I'm running in 1280 by 720, and I have my Windows 2000 VM running on that monitor, and I'm just doing a display capture. So in the case of save, as, yeah, it's pretty high resolution for Windows 2000. I think it feels really nice to me. Hopefully everyone can still read the text. I didn't even ask if that was a problem. But for the saving of the file, what we're going to do is basically just copy this code. And let's say save as. First I'm going to annotate this so that whenever the dialog appears, it will show a description of the filter that we're using. And I'm going to do typer save file. I'm not going to implement save quite yet. I'm just going to do save as because it's going to be a lot easier. And I don't know when I'm going to have to end the stream, but okay. Let's go ahead. Is there a separate call for get open? Is there a save one? Get save file name? Yeah, I think so. There is a separate one. Okay. Okay. New file.txt. Okay. So that saved the file, maybe. Let's see where it is. New file.txt. Here we go. We saved the text typer into it. I don't think that's what we meant to do. But it has text in it. Where did we get typer? Are we having a some kind of memory problem here? Oh, get window text with the app. Yeah, I did it on the window title instead of the main window instead of the edit control. Oh, it's funny. Here's my notes for this stream. So we got Before the show. P. Yeah. Now let's save it as show notes.txt. We got show notes.txt, and we opened it, and we have saving, folks. We got saving. So I got a bunch of. I do have some lists, a list of some of the songs that we have. Yeah, I can upload that somewhere. But I'm gonna move to another song really quick. What do we got? How about this one? Okay, so what can we do now that we have saving and loading? We don't have scrolling. If you'll notice, it doesn't scroll properly. And the add search with Bing, yeah. So the Windows 10 Notepad, I'm going to show it right now. This is the Windows 10 Notepad. In the edit menu, there's a search with Bing button. What are they doing? It's got to be a joke. It's got to be a joke. I don't know what they're doing. Okay. So now that we got saving and loading, what can we do? I think I'm going to try switching the font. Let's do that. Where is that in the Notepad? It's in format. Let's add format. What's the accelerator on format? Oh. ID format font. Okay. Search with Bing. I just can't believe that. Okay. Hopefully everyone's been enjoying the stream so far. I've had fun. Little rusty doing programming while other people are watching, but I think it's been a good exercise. It's like pair programming, except you have 80 people watching you instead of one. Okay, let's do the font choosing. Okay, so what we're going to need to do for the font is I'm going to add a... what should I do? Okay. I'm going to make some adjustments here. In the beginning of this stream, I added this app variable, but I'm going to zero it out. Just to prevent any accidents later on. The font that we're going to use, I think we'll let it use the default one, and then we're going to choose a font to replace it with. So how about when our window is created, let's get the current font. So we do wm get font. I think that's how you do it, right? Is there a get font function? No. Send message. Choose font. Yeah, choose font is the API to show the dialog, but I'm doing wm get font. Return to the font handle. Do I even need to get the current font? I don't really even need to get the current font. I will do, instead, I'll just get the font here. I'll do choose font. So this choose font CF structure here is the one that we pass to the choose font function, which will show our dialog. This probably has a size parameter. Let's do L struct size equals size of choose font. CF. Let's look up the choose font API real quick. Again, just want to point out that the documentation for the entire Windows API is on this computer. I don't have to use the internet at all. I haven't. The only time I have looked anything up online was when I was showing the winprog.org homepage. There's been no internet access, no Stack Overflow, nothing. Like, it's possible. It would be possible for us to return to this world. Yeah, and alt-tabbing between these things is so fast. Okay. Pointer to a choose font structure. Window that handles, that owns it. Let's do, what do we got? Device context. Don't need that. Pointer to a log font structure. Okay. So the log font structure is this thing. Let's call it log font. And what this thing is essentially like a structure that describes the properties of a font. And this structure member here, LP log font. And again, that's Hungarian notation for a long pointer to a log font. That's the long pointer part is a holdover from the Win16 era. So what do we got? That should be all we need, I think. I'm gonna make sure. The instance. What else we got? Okay, I think that's all we would need here. And I believe this probably returns a bool for success. Yeah. Okay, so if we choose the font, what are we going to do? We're going to take this log font. If this function, if choose font returns true, then what it's going to do is it's going to put the description of the font in this log font structure. And it will have like the font face name, all this stuff. And then we can use the function, what is it called? Create font indirect, I believe, that will take a log font and it will turn that into a handle to an active font inside the GDI graphics device interface graphics engine. So what we're doing here is we're telling GDI to look up this font, create an internal data structure that represents it, and allow us to use this hfont handle so that we can either paint things with it, we can paint text with it, or we can just tell the window to use the font that we just got, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to store it here in our hfont, and then I'm going to once we have it, I'm going to call send message with wm set font, and I'll have to look that up because I don't really remember how to use set font. The W param is the H font. Sounds good to me. And the L param is, let's do true. Okay. Drinking some Aquafina here. Love it. I'm also going to crack open a Gatorade. Gatorade Zero, lemon lime. Delicious. I kind of think this is going to work. So, as we're exiting the application, let's do if app.hfont is not null, then what is that? Delete object. App.hfont. Was that an ad? Nah, I just really love brands. ID format font. What's this thing called? Why isn't it? I'm just gonna rename this function. This this identifier here. Okay. I'm going to set a breakpoint here on the... I wish I knew the shortcut for that. I should probably just look it up. Breakpoints. Whatever. Typing. Font. Oh, here we go. There are no fonts installed. I'm pretty sure there are fonts installed. Yeah, okay. How about, what is, you're not leaving till you hear some Yoko Kanno. I believe... that was in our playlist. Yeah, it is. It is in the playlist. I'll play it after this song. Okay. Sorry about that, that view into the... There are no fonts installed. Yeah, I need to add some sort of parameter to the cf.style or something. What is it? CF. Is there like an all CF all? Screen font type? How about CF screen fonts? Okay. Let's try it again. Typing. Oh, there we go. Success. Let's change it to my personal brand font, Replica Pro. Oh, didn't work. Okay, so why didn't it work? I bet the font that was created... Oh, I see. I'm setting it on the window, on the main window, and not the edit control. Sup? There we go. We got fonts. What else is a good font? I like Franklin Gothic, heavy. Let's do. Love it. Love it. It's beautiful. Okay. So what did we accomplish tonight? We got opening, we got saving, and we got font. We got help actually is in the wrong place. Typer version 0.1. Can we... Is there anything else I could do really quick? I got a few minutes. I'm going to move around the help. Got to put my name in the about dialogue. This is the theme for Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. Inner Universe is the name of the song. Typer version 0.1 by let's just type this out really quick. About text. About text equals by @rogerclark greets to Twitch chat and greets to EFNet, WinProg, and Twitch chat. Nice. Looks great. One thing I noticed is that there's a problem here where on the initial draw of the window, there's some bullcrap here on the sides where the client edge is supposed to be drawn. And I'm gonna just basically hack it, I think. I am going to send a WM size on. Is that what I should do? Yeah, I should just invalidate it. What's the most brain dead way of doing it? So just to like talk about this a little bit, let me add the invalidate rect call. I want to do a little bit of talking about this really quick. Oh, there we go. Oh, icon. Let's do the icon. I'm going to open another copy of Visual Studio, and I'm going to open C Windows, C Win NT. I'm going to open the exe file for Notepad. I know there's a way to do this. How do you even do that? There is a open as resources. Okay. Yeah, that's how you do it. Okay, I'm going to open Notepad as resources. And look at this. You can literally go into this file and get whatever you want. Here's the icon. I'm just going to save. What am I going to do here? Where's the resource view that I was just in? Yeah, you can literally draw an icon here. Insane. Okay, so I need to actually save this resource. And I can't quite figure out how to do it. How about... Oh, yeah, there we go. Let's just export it. Let's call it... I don't even know where these files are, honestly. My projects. Okay. File name. Typer.ico. I'm going to insert this icon. IDI Typer. Look at this. We got an icon here. All right, so basically, you know, we got opening, we got saving. We could have implemented save as, but I'm going to change the font here really quick to Andale Mono. Okay, that looks like crap. How about, let's just do Franklin Gothic again. So, I'm going to put this on random really quick. I think, yeah, I'm definitely going to get copyright striked on this, but I don't really care. I think it's really important to consider that, like, I got a lot of functionality out of writing code for just, what was it? It was 3 hours. And I made a few stumbling blocks because I haven't written, you know, like straight up, like Win32 in quite a while. But, you know, it didn't take that long to get to the point where we had, you know, very similar functionality to, you know, to Notepad, like a very primitive version of Notepad. You can write C. You know, like if you've been like afraid of C, or you've been, you know, working with higher level languages for most of your career, this is something that's totally possible to do, and it's worth doing because it really. I work with a lot of different frameworks nowadays, and like I do a lot of web stuff. I do, in my day-to-day job, I use C++, I use C, I use C#, I use JavaScript, sometimes Objective-C. It's just in my hobby work, I use PHP, I use like a lot of JavaScript too. It's all these languages are very similar, and if you can use one, you can probably use the others. Even C and C++, which sometimes seem harder than the others, but they're really not. I think that when you look at this code, it looks very verbose, and one of the reasons why it looks so verbose is because you're essentially getting what you pay for here, right? Like every line of code that I've written more or less does something important. And when you're using a framework or you're using a high-level language, this is what's happening underneath all of it, right? It's like, I've already talked in the stream about how it's important to know what's going on on your computer, especially if you're a programmer. But I wanted to highlight how easy it was to make something like this. It's true that you could make something really easily, like this really easily with JavaScript. You could make a web page where, you can load a file and you can save a file, and that all you need is to put text into a text area and out of a text area. And it's going to be less code than this, but it's also going to be depending on, 100 megabytes of web browser code, which is like, millions of lines of code, and you don't need that. You really don't. I think I'm probably going to do a couple more streams sometime soon. If anyone has any suggestions for future programming streams, I'm definitely happy to do that. I just can't really get over how fast this is, and the actual process of programming it wasn't that fast. But what I mean by fast is like all of the stuff that I was doing, like the Visual Studio, like minimizing these windows is fast, like loading these. I don't know. Like let's just say I'm going to load this copy of Photoshop. Look at this. Like Photoshop loads like way faster than it does on a normal computer, a modern computer nowadays. Of course, Photoshop is much heavier, but there's so much to consider about how far we have sort of like derailed the computing experience over the years. There's so much to say about it that I don't think I can really condense it into this stream. I just want to say that I think if more people get into native programming, that's a good thing. If you don't care about native programming and you just liked watching the stream, that's okay too. I'm trying to wrap this up with some sort of profound comment, but really I just like looking at old computer stuff. It's really fun. I really like how the whole thing has a kind of like a hand-drawn feel to it, where all of these icons. Look at these icons. I'll show you the icons. Every single one of these icons in Windows 2000. Like look at my computer here. My computer and my network places. Let me do large icons. All of these icons were hand-drawn by someone as pixel art. They're pixel art, Between Windows 2000 and Windows XP, they moved from this sort of hand-drawn pixel art to a more modern sort of like drawing a shape in Illustrator or Photoshop and then resizing it down to this like 32-bit like pretty looking thing with an alpha channel in the background so everything's transparent. But with this stuff, you had a human being sitting there going through and clicking on each one of these little pixels with their mouse, making sure that every little dot is perfect. I think there's something really cool about that. It reminds me of, like obviously video games, like 2D video games back in the day where like every single little dot on the screen was hand placed by a person. When you have, when you draw an icon in Photoshop or Illustrator and then you resize it manually, or you resize it using a transform tool or something, the computer's doing that work, and like there's an abstraction. There's a layer of abstraction between the human being and the art, and there's the computer is right there in between. And I think, of course, obviously, if you have a pixel art tool and you're clicking around, you're clicking the mouse and you're drawing the icon, there's layers of abstraction in between that too. But it's so much less, right? Like it just gives you a much different feeling. I really love how the fonts by default in Windows 2000, it has support for anti-aliased fonts like this, but all of the small fonts by default they're all doing they're all like non-anti-aliased, so they're pixel fonts essentially. I really like that. I don't know. I think modern OSs are probably better just in terms of like, things actually have progressed quite a long way. We've gotten a lot of mileage from the abstractions that we've built over the years. Like our computers can do, the networking capabilities especially have just like come a long way. Like this installation of Windows 2000, the web browser that it has really sucks. I had to install Mozilla Firefox to really kind of get any kind of reasonable web browsing experience. And the default web browser doesn't even really support modern HTTPS. So you can't even go to a lot of modern websites. And of course we have UI frameworks and stuff now that take away a lot of the manual work that you saw me doing a few minutes ago. But I don't know. I think if I'm going to use a computer recreationally, I think this is the kind of thing I want to do. I want to do something that feels a little bit more like human beings are, like I can feel the person behind the code, or I can feel the person behind the icon, Anyone have any questions or comments in the chat? IRC client next time. Actually, I think I do want to write an IRC client. That would be pretty cool. Do I prefer developers go back to C and open a can of worms? No, I don't prefer this. I think people really need to everybody needs to chill out a little bit and let people do stuff that is fun and harmless. So, I don't think programming in C is safe. Obviously we've made a lot of progress over the years in programming languages. I really like Rust. I really like the idea of having fast programming languages that are still safe. I'm a big fan of type safety. I would prefer to be using C++ most of the time because it has a stricter type system. There's a lot of stuff that has happened since Visual Studio 98 came out that is important in the world of programming. But this is fun to me. This is what I grew up doing. You know, to me, this is like, you know, it's like playing an old video game or something. And it's just, I'm just having fun, right? But it's also useful. You know, like, C code is going to be around for the next 100 years. There's nothing anyone can do about it. You know, you get everyone to adopt Rust, and there's still going to be C code bases that you have to read and understand. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon. You know, like, all of our operating systems are written in C. All of our embedded systems are written in C. You know, it's not going anywhere. You probably need to know it if you want to be a serious industrial programmer. I think you got to know both. Know as many things as you possibly can. With programming, like this, there's no end to the amount of knowledge that you can accumulate. There's so many languages. If you're not, you know, if you don't have a, maybe I should back up and say, just try and learn as much as you possibly can. It's a good idea. If you have any interest in new programming languages, you can check out this language, Circle. I think it's circlelang.org. I don't know if it's actually. I can show you. I'll show it to you in Microsoft Edge. But yeah, so our friend Sean Baxter here wrote this C++ compiler, which essentially does a lot of the same stuff that Jonathan Blow's language does, except you can use it right now. So check it out, circlelang.org. It's a new C++ compiler that sort of implements a C++ interpreter during compile time. So you can use C++ to script the compiler at compile time. Really interesting if you guys haven't heard of it. Have I messed with D at all? I have. So D has changed a lot over the years. And I don't know what it's like now. I know what it used to be like. And I messed with it in the late 2000s. Maybe the mid 2000s. And I think it's improved quite a bit, but I don't know much about it right now, so I can't comment. Thanks for joining, Cancel, Andrew. Another great programmer. If you're interested in programming streams, follow this guy, Cancel FM, in the chat. He's one of the most meticulous programmers I know, especially for things like performance. Okay, maybe you don't stream, but you have before. If you, I would also say, check out, if you care about performance, check out Cancel's Discord and Slack client called Ripcord, and I'll see if the Ripcord page will even load in Firefox. It should. Yeah, good job. So yeah, this thing is great. I use it every day for Discord and Slack. It's a native client for both of those chat services, which by default need an Electron-based web browser engine to run. Back in the day, we wrote IRC clients in C, and it was fast. And that's what Andrew has done here. That's what Cancel has done here with Ripcord. It's based on the Qt framework, and it runs on Mac, on Linux, and Windows. And it's not made from a web browser. That's really all you got to say. And it's compatible with the Discord voice chat stuff. It's compatible with like most of the Slack features that exist. So if you use Slack for work like I do, and you don't want it taking up like 8 gigs of RAM, check out Ripcord. So yeah, I think I'm pretty much done with the stream. It's almost my bedtime. I try and get 9 hours of sleep every night, like a healthy person. Although now that I've drank this Jolt Cola, I don't know if that's actually going to be possible. We got the Scatman remix coming back. Had a lot of fun doing the stream tonight. Got a lot of viewers, and I'm very thankful for that. It means a lot of people want to watch this sort of creative content on Twitch. I'll be back soon with another stream. I often do just kind of random stuff. I'm a heavy player of Dance Dance Revolution and similar dance games. So my next stream, if you followed me because of this, you'll probably end up seeing Dance Dance Revolution or some fast food review streams. Those are just some of my hobbies. I really like. I like keeping up with brands and what they're doing, and all that stuff.